The 42 principles are shown on the screen. For those without video, I will read them aloud. Number 1. I will do no misdeed. 2. I will not steal. I will not act unjustly. I will not murder. I will not waste food. I will not cheat the scales. I will not defraud temple offerings. I will not lie. I will not waste the day. I will not abuse my sexuality. I will not cause the shedding of tears. I will not act with guile. I will not break the law, capital L. I will not commit fraud. I will not hoard land. I will not keep knowledge secret. I will not bring dishonor to anyone. I will not argue. I will not commit adultery. I will not wrongly copulate. I will not cause terror. I will not cause destruction. I will not be an aggressor. I will not turn from words of right and truth. I will not utter curses. I will not act with violence. I will not bear false witness. I will not prejudge. I will not judge. I will not exaggerate. I will not cause harm. I will not do evil. I will not commit treason against my ancestors. I will not waste water. I will not speak in anger. I will not blaspheme the one most high. I will not be arrogant. I will not desecrate holy places. I will not plunder the dead. I will not mistreat children. I will not hinder the worship of God. I will not mistreat animals. The individualists believe that the teaching of these moral principles with individualistic philosophy in the school and at home up to adulthood will drastically reduce the number of harmful actions perpetrated in society. Knowledge becomes the deterrent, not the fear of punishment. In addition to these 42 principles, the individualist adds the 12 preventative concepts, which shut forever the door which leads to the madness of the present world. They constitute an understanding of the forces to be kept in check and kept in mind. They overlap and condense the 42 principles, clearing up the ambiguous areas which could be exploited, and they are more serious in their implications. 1. I will not lose sight of the source of problems, harm against the one. Thus, I shall honor its every piece. 2. I will not withhold knowledge. 3. I will not hand over my responsibility to another. I will not cause harm to any man, beast, or environment, save for subsistence or defense, and then minimally. 5. I will not impede the will of another so long as that other violates not the 54 principles. 6. I will not make additional laws which do not apply equally to the entire populace. 7. I will not act upon any decision that affects another individual without that other's consent. 8. I will not waste anything. 9. I will not govern any other than myself. 10. I will not make a private bank. 11. I will not make currency that cannot be redeemed at any time for real energy. 12. I will not practice usury or the sale of currency for a gain higher than the value of that currency, directly or indirectly. C. Punishments. There are no punishments for breaking the above 54 principles directly, as they are mostly moral laws to prevent the misdeed initially. The punishment is issued to the misdeed, which is inevitably caused by the breaking of the above precepts. The individualists do not attempt to describe every misdeed in various punishments. They recognize only 3 basic misdeeds: assault, murder, and theft, each having 8 major manifestations totaling 24 misdeeds. See the table. They are listed in a points system, granting them punishment levels of 4 to 8 points. Thus, there are a total of 5 basic punishment levels. Each of these levels is then multiplied by an offense multiplier of 1 to 3 degrees. The degrees represent 1. A first-time offender, 2. A past offender, and 3. A multiple offender. Therefore, there are 13 punishments, actually 15, but the products of 8 and 12 repeat. The punishments are all time sentences based in labor force assignments. They are as follows: 1. 4 points, 3 months. 2. 5 points, 6 months. 3. 6 points, 1 year. 4. 7 points, 1.5 years. 5. 8 points, 2 years. 6. 10 points, 2.5 years. 7. 12 points, 3 years. 8. 14 points, 4 years. 9. 15 points, 5 years. 10. 16 points, 6 years. 11. 18 points, 7 years. 12, 21 points, 8 years. 13, 24 points, 9 years, labor force. There is only one exception to these times, and that is with the premeditated murder of a person. This act adds an additional 5 years onto the calculated sentence. The table shown on the screen is not intended to be exhaustive. It is merely an example of a possible method to achieve a higher degree of simplicity. 1. Defense multipliers. There are only 3 major reasons to do harm: defense, desperation, and deliberation. These 3 words are the lawyer's only weapon against the 13 sentences listed above. They too are multipliers. Defense is 0, desperation 0.5, and deliberate 2. A lawyer can plead for one of these multipliers to be added to the base system, and at the discretion of the judge and jury, they will either be added or left as a neutral act. A neutral act is when it is found that the base punishment is fit for the circumstances. Deliberate perpetrators are the most severely punished. Their multiplier actually signifies a higher degree of deliberation, pointing more toward a conscious evil, as any act in itself represented by the base punishments are nearly all deliberate to some degree. Acts of desperation can be understood to an extent, but they are still punished because the individual in question neglected to use his knowledge to prevent himself from entering into a situation of desperation in the first place. Defense is the least of the 3, and if found to be true, the case is forgiven completely, as its multiplier is 0. There exists one final multiplier which may be used at the judge and jury's discretion. It is a multiplier of 1/4. And when used by the jury, it is called the mercy of the court. And when used by the judge, it is simply called mercy. They can be used simultaneously, and in cases where a jury is not present, the judge may apply it twice if so desired. This will be found used in many of the lesser cases to break the 3-month minimum sentence into 22 days, or coupled with a desperation plea, possibly down to 11 days. At the extreme extent, a ruling of double mercy makes the minimum possible sentence 3 days, or $155, the lowest possible fine. 2. Reparations. In addition to the time sentences, reparations may be due. They are payments strictly for damages to the victim and property. Additional abstract damages for pain and suffering or mental trauma may be added but are capped at 15% of the total immaterial property damages, and 100% of bodily injury expenses incurred, calculated by PHS. However, in the case of a premeditated murder, there shall be no cap for the victim's immediate family. The reparation amount can be paid by the criminal in personal capital or property, paid voluntarily or seized by the victim. If the criminal has no capital, reparations will be paid by half of the criminal's labor force wages being sent to the victim. If when free and still owing reparations, the criminal has no capital producing project in 1 week, producing an amount greater than the weekly labor force wages, he is to remain in the labor force until the reparations are paid in full. Note, the other half of the wages pay a criminal's room and board. 3. Fines. For any crime of 4 or 5 points, the time can be traded as a fine payment equal to the amount of wages that would be paid in that allotted time by the labor force. For example, if one was convicted of a 4-point crime, which is a 3-month sentence, this would equal about $3,086 at minimum wage, which is the wage paid by the labor force. Having fines of these higher amounts acts as a deterrent in themselves, and also acts as incentive for one to enter into a labor force assignment, where, despite its name, is a great place of learning. Choosing this avenue as opposed to paying a fine, the criminal actually keeps half of the minimum wage earned, if no reparations are involved, while learning and helping the community. Any crime above 5 points must be served as time. This eliminates the ability of individuals with wealth to escape penalization. To the intelligent or wealthy criminal, the labor force is a humbling experience that reminds them of the foundations of a society and the great ease which a society makes out of the harshness of nature. For the ignorant criminal, it is a place of learning, rehabilitation, and encouragement. Until full conversion to the individualistic system, fines and time are applied by the statutes of the Model Penal Code, compiled by the American Law Institute, save that instead of going to prison, the perpetrators enter into the labor force. All modern judgments for fines may be converted into labor force time by dividing them by the current minimum wage. Unlike the present fines, which are only a part of the bill, and then there is a myriad of additional administration fees, the individualists' fines are the bottom line and cover all costs.